live got blitzed because I'm an idiot. My my phone is brand new. I'm trying the Google Pixel, so um, I really am not quite sure how to operate it, and it was I guess out of battery, and I didn't know. So it was stupid to actually start shooting a live. So that's why we only got through 25 minutes of the last live. Hopefully, some of you guys that were on there are able to make it over here. And it's unfortunate because we just got rolling. That's how a live goes. It kind of starts slow, and then you just get rolling, and then it starts to be a good time. Was talking a little bit with Larry. Happy to see he's over here. It's always nice when other dog trainers support, and I've certainly enjoyed a lot of his stuff. So, if you haven't had a chance to check out his channel, check out his channel. Like I always say, it's always good to check out other people's stuff. Especially if you're kind of just learning, because there's always a different flavor. Everybody has a different outlook. They look at things a little bit differently. It's always nice to, kind of see what everybody else is doing, and you can take a little something from everybody. So, anyways, guys, I'll wait for you guys to get on here. I still out here smoking my cigar, trying to scare the mosquitoes away with the smoke. So, I can still be live. So I'll be live as long as this phone holds out. I moved to the front of the house where the internet's better. Um, I really like sitting at the back of the house, but I guess the internet isn't that good back there. So we're gonna be at the front for now. Glad to see you guys are all back on there. Getting back on. Good. So, yeah, one thing I'll tell you guys this. So my e-collar training course is my e-collar, I shouldn't say course, my e-collar training seminar is now available under my online courses. Um, but one thing that I learned in my e-collar training seminars, we had a fair few people come there with dogs that were, in my opinion, completely untrained. And there aren't very many things I do with the e-collar that I do with completely untrained dogs. I actually train the dog for the most part before I add the e-collar in. And like I've always said with the e-collar, it is an amplifier, okay? It amplifies whatever it is that you're doing or whatever it is that you've done if you're using it properly. So if you've done some bad stuff, then it's going to amplify the bad stuff. If you've done some good stuff, it's going to amplify the good stuff if you use it properly. So, what I found, yes, you're on, Robert. I see you there. No, it's not your connection, Sienna. It was me. It was all me. It was me doing some stupid stuff. Hopefully, this one doesn't have any problems. I'm just I'm plugged in now, so yeah, like I was saying, one thing I saw at the e-collar seminars, a lot of people brought dogs that I'm like, I'm not putting an e-collar on this dog. The dog doesn't know anything. He needs leash work. You know, he might need a prong collar right now. He might need some food, some treats, stuff like this. But a lot of the dogs, they didn't have a dog that was ready to go on an e-collar. They had a dog that needed the very basics taught to him first before you could kind of start using the e-collar. So for me, that's how I use the e-collar. Now there are certain things that I'll train from scratch with an e-collar. Like generally, I can train a recall from scratch with an e-collar. I'm willing to do it, and I don't see a problem with it. But other than that, most of everything else, like behavioral issues, stuff like that, I don't use the e-collar at the beginning for that. So, if you guys want to kind of get my outlook on e-collar training, both when it comes to the great thing about that, so I filmed that whole e-collar seminar, um, and I kind of compiled it and I put it up on my under my online courses as the e-collar seminar, so you guys can watch like my lectures on the e-collar, how I believe it should be used, how I apply it to behavioral issues, how I apply it to competition obedience, how I apply it to functional obedience, and then you can start to maybe get some of your own ideas. So it's hours of lectures, and then there's also a few hours of watching me work some dogs with the e-collar. So you can see me kind of starting dogs on the e-collar, doing more advanced work with the dogs on the e-collar, and you can really kind of get an idea of how I use the e-collar in my training systems. And then maybe it'll help you with whatever it is that you're doing. So that I put up on my online courses, so it is there. And for those of you who don't know, I should shill it, shieldk9.ca. Check out our online courses. Has been training my Malinois in ring sport. That's fun. However, looking to add a little bit more power and willingness. I see how you work with Yaxi. We have some formal competitive obedience. Yeah, I mean, like ring sport for me generally, like, it's very functional in the obedience. I don't think the protection's all that functional, but the obedience is quite functional, like in that they're not really looking for drive in the obedience, they're just looking for reliability. Like for me, my competition obedience is all about generating tons of arousal, making the dog super excited. Um, I don't really know ring sport well enough to tell you if that would be a good idea or not, right? I don't really think it would be a bad idea, but it depends how long you're going in ring sport, right? Like the obedience that I'm doing for my dog in IGP, I'm thinking maximum I'm on the field 8 to 10 minutes and we're done, right? Now, if I'm on the field 20 minutes, I might go about doing things differently, right? So it all depends on kind of what you're doing. Do I correct my dog from whining when she sees a dog from our window or porch? She no longer goes nuts, just avoids or whines. Yeah, because generally for me, I wouldn't obviously correct it the same way I would correct like full on reactivity, but I think that any kind of arousal generated towards other dogs is unhealthy and it's not productive, and I would discourage it. Um, I think if I incorporate, this is the ring sport guy, I think if I incorporate some of that intermittently with my rewards, that will correlate to getting more. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. That video I posted of Yaxi, just like some work that I was doing with him. I'm using Yaxi in my upcoming like competition obedience course that I'm going to be posting online. So I actually that same day I filmed that session more in an instructional way to show people like what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But if a lot of people could watch that and probably steal some of what I'm doing anyways, right? So, I do believe that I'm a big believer in that kind of obedience. It's super fun to train that way. I love generating tons of arousal. Um, Someone told me that if I have to use force in training, then I'm not a competent trainer and shouldn't own a dog. Yeah, well, tell that someone to take a leash off their dog, because what is a leash? A leash is force. You're forcing your dog to stay with you. Tell them to take their leash off the dog and walk their dog down a busy road. And then if they can show you that, and the dog's obedient, the dog's listening, and the dog's following all their instructions, then talk to them about force, right? Then they can have a conversation with you. Now, I'll guarantee you this, that person will not be able to do that. They need to rely on force to keep their dog with them. The only difference between what you're doing, if you're following like my type of training system or maybe somebody else's training system that's similar or whatever, is you're saying, hey, I don't want to keep using force to keep you with me. I want to actually free you up. I want to let you go, but I want to do so in a way that's safe, right? It's idiocy. This kind of it's emotional idiocy. It's these people say these types of things, and it's like it sounds from an emotional standpoint, it sounds nice, but it's really not. It doesn't make any kind of sense, right? So it's one of those things where, I always say, oh yeah, show me. Take the leash off. Take the leash off. Take your force off your dog. Let's see what your dog chooses to do, especially under a situation where there's competing motivators, right? I hold my child's hand when I'm walking him, right? Does it mean that I'm using force to keep him with me? Absolutely. Because he's 3 years old and he'll go kill himself in traffic if I don't, right? It's one of those things. When he's older and I can read, guess what? Your dog's 3 years old for life, can outrun you, probably faster than you, stronger than you. Yeah, heck yeah, I'm going to use a little bit of aversion to create some reliability in the obedience. But guess what? I'm also going to use a lot of motivation too, right? So that kind of idiocy, don't give it the time of day. Those people don't know what they're talking about. Happy Father's Day. Yes, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Happy Father's Day to you and any of the other dads out there watching. Um, I'm a trainer. Clients have issues with resource guarding, with food, with new baby. Just be careful with the baby, guys. Just be careful with the baby. For me, like I said, I don't play around with little kids ever. Maybe it's because I have little kids, so I just know how precious they are. I really like them. So I really it hits home for me when I hear about bad things with little kids and dogs. It kills me, guys. Like it kills me. I always say this: if the child's crawling around, the dog should not have any resources. Like my dogs don't resource guard. Guess what? The food, their bowls, their stuff's in the basement, right? And my kids are not in a position where there can really be a argument over a resource, right? Where there can be conflict over a resource, if that makes sense. Just minimize the possibility. I think the vast majority of bites towards children happen through like resource guarding. Probably the vast majority of bites on owners, period, are resource guarding related, and a lot of it's management. I talk too much, my cigar goes out. Okay, let's see. Any other stuff? Hey, from the Philippines. How's it going, my friend? A lot of people from the Philippines. Very interesting. From Arizona. It's currently 1:11, and I too am on my patio smoking. That's it, my friend. Hey, in the wintertime, I can't do this. I got to come up with something for the winter because in the winter it's freezing cold. It's like, a good day is like -3. I can't smoke cigars. So, we're going to have to come up with something. Maybe like a sunroom or something. I don't know. 2 a.m. in Morocco. I've been watching videos from Morocco lately. So, those of you that follow me on Instagram and my personal YouTube page, there's a YouTube page called Has Othman. I don't post on there as much as I probably should. It's kind of more like my personal interests, that kind of stuff. Um, I'm into horses too. Like I not like I am into dogs, obviously, but I'm into horses. I have a couple. I really like the horses of Morocco. There are some really cool horse videos that I watch in Morocco. Like they have like these really nice barb. I think they're called barbs. Really super nice horses. Big, beautiful. They look a lot like the Andalusians. So, what's up, Morocco? Cool to see everybody from around the world. Poland, New Mexico, Massachusetts. That's awesome, guys. Barbarian horses or barb horses. I don't think they're barbarian horses. Is that what they are? Is that why they call them barb? I think it's called the Spanish barb, or is it the Arab barb? I don't know, but they're awesome. There's a bunch of guys in Morocco with these horses, and they're just doing stuff with them, and it's awesome. All intact stallions. Crazy guys, man. But it's probably how they did it back in the day. I have a stallion. People think I'm crazy, and maybe I am. And I want to keep him intact. But in the West, it's not such a big deal to like. In the West, it's not so common to keep a horse intact. It's very uncommon. And by the West, I'm saying North America. I'm not smoking enough. This freaking mosquitoes are coming. Um, but yeah, so, but in other places they keep the stallions intact and they're all around each other and stuff. It's crazy. Oh, apprenticeships. That reminds me. So Veronica was asking about apprenticeships. I'm hiring. Well, I'm not hiring because I'm not paying. Um, so there's two apprenticeships that I offer. There's a paid apprenticeship, right? And I'll offer that to some people. But I'm looking for some young and I say young because obviously, look, if you're older, you've got things going on in your life, you're not really looking for another career or anything like that. Maybe you're looking for the knowledge, but not really another career. I'm looking for some young people that are interested in being dog trainers. Um, maybe one day, and I'm offering an apprenticeship where I'm not going to charge you anything for the apprenticeship. But here's the thing: you got to be local. You got to be able to dedicate 2 days a week here for training, and you're going to be expected to work while you're here. It's not all just going to be us showing you how to train dogs. You're going to be expected to kind of, work. A lot of it's going to be very well, pretty much all of it's going to be educational. But we are looking for apprentices, so we're taking on apprentices, and that's going to be free. And then I also offer paid apprenticeships for people kind of like out of town. Um, and they want to come in and train, learn how to be a trainer, and then go back to wherever they are and train that kind of stuff. So yeah, we certainly offer apprenticeships, both paid and ones where you don't have to pay. But for the ones where you don't have to pay, you got to be kind of what we're looking for from more of a hiring standpoint or a potential hiring standpoint. But yeah, we do offer that. Hey man, thanks. Love those horses too. You got good taste. Thanks. I like them too. Do your shepherds ever get chapped noses? No. I not really. It's not very common, I wouldn't say. I'm not saying you're old, Christine. um Yeah, my husband would love to go to your apprenticeship. Yeah, well, send us an email. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. How can I get my 1-year-old Malwa to walk next to me? Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think this live is really a situation to talk about that. That's really not like, that's like a very in-depth thing. Why should your Malwa walk next to you? That's a better question. Does he have to do it all the time? Should he only be doing this? For me, the healing command is something I do only some of the time. The vast majority of my time, my dogs are not stuck in the heel position, right? A lot of people do that kind of as like, hey, I can't get my dog to behave, so I'm just going to stick him in heel for the rest of his life. I don't do that. Nine times, like 90% of the time when I'm walking my dogs, they're not healing because I want them to be dogs. I want them to run around. I want them to smell stuff and do stuff. I have control at a distance. Um, my German Shepherd's constantly trying to kill our two cats in the house. I've tried correcting her with the e-collar, but it hasn't made a difference. Would the reactive dog course work for something like that? I would say this. I would say this. Do I would suggest number one, the reactive dog course is something that you can apply to just about anything that your dog's doing that you don't like, right? If you've got a little bit of common sense, you can watch those videos and you can extrapolate. The reason I didn't get into other things in the reactive course other than reactivity was because if you don't have a lot of common sense, that could go wrong. I already kind of was like questioning whether I should post that reactive course or not because I knew it's inevitable that some people are going to take that out of like take some of those things and do the wrong thing with those things that I was talking about and showing and so on and so forth and would take them out of context. So, it's one of those things, guys. um, you can watch the reactive course and you can for sure extrapolate what you need to be doing in order to get your dog to stop bothering your cats. Apprentice here, local Jai Doll. Jai Doll, I recognize your username. I probably wouldn't recognize you if I saw you. Send us a resume. Send us a resume and mention that you came to the seminar. That's a good sign. And then we can go from there. Can you catch your own dog in prey? I know you shouldn't in defense, but in prey, yes, you can. I do a lot of I do a lot of jumping with my dog. I call it jumping, the long attacks, right? You can just set them up in a down, go far away, hold the wedge out and let the dog run through the wedge. For sure, you can do that. It's one of those things where you're not really doing protection. It's more kind of like a skills development thing. If you're looking for that, kind of high flying long attack that we want in IGP, I wouldn't call it protection training, but you can surely do it. How old was I when I started dog training? 25, I believe. I was 25 when I really like kind of started trying to train dogs. Like I had a dog a couple years earlier and I messed around with her a bit, but 25 I would say is when I really. No, I lie because I was also I did some canine security handling. I wouldn't call it training though. So I was a canine security handler like at 18. I did that for a couple years, on and off. And then from there it was a couple years and I got a dog, messed around with her. Then at 25 I kind of got interested in actual dog training and I started training kind of on the side there. Let's see here. Uh People asking me about European breeders I would recommend. I mean, look, you got to do your own research. It's not really about the breeder. Every breeder has nice puppies and every breeder doesn't. There's obviously some breeders that have a really high track record of success. Um, Iron Cross, I can't pronounce it in German. Eisernen Krus or something like that. Iron Cross. Um, Jabina. Um, there's another one that has a lot of Sartoris. These are sometimes Vicar. It really depends though. There's certainly all of them have produced bad dogs too. There's no like guarantees, right? There's plenty of good dogs in North America. There's no need to go to Europe if you want a nice dog. German Shepherd, WSB IGP dogs worth noting in your opinion. Um, That's a good question. So I've really liked some of the kids I've seen out of Knox von Tallhouse. Uh, I think he was at the WSV. Knox von Tallhouse. Uh, who else? Who else recently that I can think of? Yeah, Knox von Tallhouse I really liked. For those of you wondering, Yaxi, my new dog, is out of Knox von Tallhouse, and I've seen some other kits out of Knox von Tallhouse that I like. Like, he throws big dogs, he throws pretty dogs, and he throws dogs that have a little bit of edge. So as long as the nerves are good coming from the female side, like I think Knox produces very well. But of course, the female has to be stable. Otherwise, you're going to get nerve bags. Um, Knox, I think they've done some breed like I've seen some Cody puppies. I didn't really like any of the Cody von Wolfsfried puppies. Um, there's a bunch of new dogs everybody likes, like Index von Moonspiel. Who's the other one? Impact von Haus Vox. There's probably a bunch I'm not thinking of. You know who I want to breed to actually, and I haven't gotten around to it. I have to import semen. Is Stefan Schaap's dog, Ivan von der Staatsmacht. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of the Staatsmacht lines. So Ivan von der Staatsmacht, I would like to breed on him. He was not at the WSV. I think he was at the U.S. Nationals a few years ago, before the handler stopped training. But Ivan von der Staatsmacht, I would like to breed on, and I have to arrange that. Do I feel that people need a certificate or license to be a dog trainer? Hell no. Who's giving that license out? What makes them qualified? I guarantee you, if you create that situation, here's what's going to happen. The hell? This thing's out again. Here's what's going to happen if you create that situation, right? Where somebody is the arbiter of who is and is not a dog trainer. I guarantee you this. What's going to happen is some bureaucrat is going to be given the keys to the castle. Okay, uh, that is definitely not something that you want. And then number two, what's going to happen is the positive only movement, probably sneaking in using a veterinary association of some sort, are going to hijack the whole thing and say, we're the veterinary, the American Behaviorist Association or whatever, veterinary behaviorists are the only people that can determine if someone should be a dog trainer or not. Listen, veterinary behaviorists and behaviorists, 99.99% of them cannot train a dog. They cannot fix a behavioral problem other than to prescribe psychotropic medication, and hopefully they can lobotomize the dog enough with the meds that maybe they stop acting as badly. These are not people in general. In general, I know there are some good ones, but vast majority, like the vast majority of them, you have to understand it's a very political movement, and those are the people that would get the power. It wouldn't be like, hey, that dog trainer that's had a lot of success at the world level or any of that kind of stuff. No, it would be, some random positive only ideologue, or some approximation of that would get the ability to certify and license dog trainers. And of course, all reasonable dog training would be banned immediately. Right? There's a reason why whenever they're studying methods and stuff, they never go to like top level trainers. They don't go to guys that go to the world level. They go to like, you always hear like, oh, we used manufacturer approved trainers in order to study e-collars. What manufacturer? What approved? Who? No one even knows these people that train these dogs that they supposedly use, right? Nonsense, right? No, you cannot trust anyone. Um, Dog training, look, it's not something you can go to school for. It's not something that anyone can be, well, it's not something that you can like just be like, oh, this certification means you're a dog trainer. Like, look, obviously, if I see someone's been to a certain dog training school or trained under a certain trainer, it tells me a little something about them. But that's not something you can entrust to the government. Absolutely not. Let's see here. How do I correct my dog from biting strangers that are your friends? Emphatically. Okay. Let's see here. I'm picking up my new Euro male Doberman on the 29th. He will be 8 weeks. Any advice? Take my puppy course. That's advice. Or check out my free YouTube content on puppy training. Why is it so hard to get with a protection trainer? Um, Well, I'll tell you this: it's hard to get with me as a protection trainer because I'll tell if number one, if I look at your dog and I say, hey, this is going to be either a really tough job or it's probably not worth the effort, I'm not going to take you on. And I assume probably a lot of other trainers are like that. You have to look at it from this angle, okay? Your trainer probably, if they're any good, they have a lot of options, and they're not going to want to take on a dog that is going to be a big headache or probably isn't suited to the work. I'm not saying that's what your dog is. I'm just saying that's what a lot of it is. A lot of the reason why people don't want to do it. And the other thing too is, look, it's quite expensive, right? Like I charge a lot for it because if I'm training your dog in protection, guess what else I could be doing? I could be training a doodle, right? And guess how much that doodle owner is paying me by the hour? So a lot of people want to do the protection training, but then when they hear how much it's going to cost, I'm like, hey, I'm just charging you the same as I would charge the doodle guy, but they don't want to pay that much. Some of them do, but then some of them don't have the dog for it, so on and so forth. So you know, generally good protection trainers are in high demand, and usually good protection trainers aren't just doing protection work, right? Not session after session after session. They're also doing a ton of pet training, so on and so forth. So yeah, there's probably a good reason why you're not able to find one so easily. Cigars out and the mosquitoes are torturing me. Um, let's see here. What am I drinking? I am drinking sparkling coconut water. I'm getting drunk. No, I'm kidding. What is the alternative for the bonker? There are many alternatives for the bonker. You have to ask the question, why would you use one, right? Um, why would you use a bonker? And when you know why you're going to use a bonker, then you'll know what the alternatives are for one, right? At the end of the day, a bonker is for punishment, and there are situations in which you might want to punish your dog, and there are situations in which you don't want to punish your dog, right? So, if you want to punish your dog, there are of course many ways to punish your dog. You don't just need to rely on a bonker in order to do so. So, any form of punishment is an alternative to using the bonker. Should have ashed it. I talk too much and I don't smoke, and then it goes out. What do I think German Shepherd? Why do I think German Shepherds generally don't do well in PSA? I think it's because PSA is something that is more of prey type bite work. You generally don't want really any reactive aggression in the bite work in PSA. German Shepherds carry more reactive aggression than uh, your average Malinois does, especially the Malinois that are generally used in PSA, very high prey dogs. In PSA, you don't want a dog that takes the protection too seriously generally because I think it's going to mess up a lot of your secondary control. Whereas in IGP, you can have that kind of dog. And before anybody gets mad at me, I'm not saying that PSA dogs aren't real. For sure, there's some real absolute beasts that do PSA. Um, and there are certainly German Shepherds that could do really well, but a lot of the really top tier German Shepherds are in IGP. And I think there's a lot less people that go into PSA with a German Shepherd. So that's also part of it. Um, how do I feel about Javier Tacamardo lines? I like them. I've had a fair few of them. I like those dogs. I like the dogs from that line, but it's so diluted now. So who's to say? Force-free trainers say board and trains are no good, and that only bad trainers use it because they suppress the dog so much the owner thinks it's trained. Well, it's not thinks it's trained. It's either trained or it's not, right? Now, suppression is something that you can use, certainly, and for certain behaviors, I will use it. So I just dealt with a lady. Um, she had a very active dog, and the dog was super like, was a very strong 140-pound dog, and she's physically not very able. Okay, the dog pulls her down, she's gonna break bones. If the dog pulls her down, you know, it really could actually legitimately kill her. So you better believe I suppressed the pulling on that dog. I did a lot of other things, but I certainly suppressed the pulling on that dog, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, right? So there are certain areas in which it is appropriate to suppress a dog in training, but it's not just like a general suppression, right? So yeah, look, force-free trainers are idiots. Why would you be concerned with anything they have to say? Band dog Pressa versus German Shepherd for personal protection. German Shepherd generally has more clarity and more utility. Again, we're speaking in broad generalities, so who's to say? You think there's no place for meds? No, I don't think there's any place for medication. Beyond, of course, we're talking psychotropic medication that affects the mind of the dog. Maybe I just haven't seen, right? I've never seen one where it's like, hey, um, hey, like this dog is so much better with the meds. Like almost every dog that comes to me for training, generally I say take the meds away right away, right? Like I don't want those meds interfering. A lot of dogs they prescribe medication. Like you have to understand, a lot of negative dog behaviors they actually look like mental health issues, and they are, you know, but just like a lot of mental health issues, I don't think psychotropic medication is the solution, right? With dogs, you have to teach them to function in spite of the emotion that's causing the issue, right? So it's like, okay, you're scared of everything. No problem. You're scared. You just got to learn to deal with your fear. What you're doing right now with your fear is not productive. Here's what you should be doing, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. How how is your new horse settling in with his friend? He's not new. I've had those horses now for 2 years. But they were just away at a training barn. A guy called Rick Fleetwood, he's a quarter horse guy. He was training them pretty much all year, so they just came back. But they're doing great. How can we breed Dobermans back to the old standard? I don't think there ever was an old standard, to be honest with you. I think that's part of the problem. Um, I think look, there are some people breeding the Doberman. I don't know what the health is like, but I've seen some good working Dobermans on benchmark Dobermans in the U.S. That's pretty much it. People say some other kennels like, oh, there's this kennel or that kennel. I haven't seen their dogs and said, hey, that's like an awesome dog. And I've seen dogs from those kennels and I haven't been impressed. The only dogs that I've been really impressed by are benchmark dogs, to be honest with you. And I've seen a fair few of them. Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to turn on my light. Okay. We got some light here. It's getting dark. Anyways, yeah, I mean, look, I think the Doberman needs to be outcrossed. I'm not saying you have to do it officially, but for sure has to be outcrossed, and then the new blood brought back into the line. There's way too many health issues, even with the good ones. Way too many health issues. Like there's a joke, right? Like if it's a good Doberman, it's dead by 4 or 5 years old, and if it's a bad Doberman, it lives till 12 with like a myriad of health issues that end up costing you tens of thousands of dollars. Plus, you have to deal with the shitty temperament, right? And of course, that's a generality, but it's a pretty accurate one, especially in the cases of the Doberman. So I will say this, it's a lot of work. So it's going to be somebody's project. Here's the problem too: Doberman's the cropping of the ears and the docking up the tails is being banned in most places. So where's the incentive? Like, have you seen an uncropped, undocked Doberman? Looks like a coonhound. Like nobody wants that, right? So I think the Doberman is something that we're going to see less and less of, and certainly there's not going to be very many good ones available. I think ever. I spent a lot of money on a vet behaviorist, and she had me using a head halter. Every time I saw her, the dog would start biting me. She would stand there telling me to hold his collar. Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a lot of people's experiences, unfortunately. But that's the kind of person that will be a gatekeeper on who can train and not train dogs, and they're writing papers and all this type of stuff. All right. Do you have any tips for these younger trainers on TikTok? I don't go on TikTok. That is communist propaganda. I will not go on there. I see a lot of them. Some have potential, but I feel trainers nowadays feel as if they need to be social media fame in order to be a trainer. I'd say that's everything though. Like I kind of fell into putting my stuff on social media. The reason I did, so the reason I have a YouTube channel actually, is because I wanted an online portfolio of all the work that I did, right? Like I wanted like a portfolio so people could see like, the training that I offered so they could decide, if I was for them or not. So that's really it. And then it just kind of turned into a YouTube channel, but that wasn't the intention. But nowadays, absolutely, if you want to be a dog trainer, you better have an online presence. And for sure, the problem with online presence is this. Once people kind of get a little bit savvy with the online presence, you know what they do? They start obfuscating, smoke and mirrors, right? You can make things look a certain way online, just like everybody knows, like on Instagram, TikTok, these apps where it's like just like short little snippets. You can make it look like you're really good at what you do when you're not, right? You can make it look like you're really rich when you're not, so on and so forth. So that's the problem with too much online training. But look, if you meet me in person, I really go out of my way online to be as genuine as I can be and as honest as I can be because I really don't want to trick anybody into anything. I am what I am. We train the way we train. You either like it or you don't. This thing is practically out again. Too much talking. First time German Shepherd owner here. We have a 7-month old male, and he is coming along nicely, but he is uncomfortable around other dogs. I have a free video on socialization, but basically, stop forcing him to interact with strange dogs, and he'll stop being so uncomfortable, right? The second your dog figures out he's not going to be forced to interact with strange dogs, the second he needs to he'll stop worrying about them so much. Do I ever use chain gangs for tying out multiple dogs? You mean like for puppies? I've used a chain to tie out multiple puppies. For sure, you can do it. I have a 9-month old German Shepherd. She's shy around bigger dogs. We've been taking her to the dog park. No, that's not going to build her confidence. Stop taking her to the dog park. Stop forcing her to interact with strange dogs. She doesn't need to. It's not something that's going to be productive for her. That's not something that she's going to become more confident. It's going to either create a reactivity issue, it's going to create a focus issue. You're basically just teaching her to be aroused around other dogs and also to be concerned that she's going to be molested. And depending on her temperament, it'll it'll change definitely depending on like what her perception is of those interactions, but none of the results of going to the dog park will be productive for you or your dog. Do I know any force free trainers that I would recommend? No. Why? Like it's like why would you recommend, like I wouldn't recommend any force free trainer because that's somebody who doesn't acknowledge reality. Like what's the point? Right? Like it's somebody who doesn't acknowledge reality, and there's somebody who doesn't train that way that does exactly the same thing they do but better. That's the way I kind of look at it, right? Obviously, if you're using, all ends of the spectrum in your training, you're going to have more, you're going to have more success. Can you train things force free? Absolutely. Not reliably, but like in certain behaviors, you can most certainly train them force free. Does it mean you should? No, because you're limiting the dog, you're limiting the training, right? When you first started in dog training, how many dogs did you train in protection before you got a really good protection dog? Or was your first dog a rock star? Um, when I really got into protection, by the time I got into protection training, I already had a really nice dog. So I would say he was pretty strong in protection. Like people really, he was a crowd pleaser on the IGP field. Have you ever made a dog yelp or jump using a collar, e-collar? Hell yeah, I have. Absolutely. Um, do I have any experience working with Bucerons? Sure, absolutely. Um, are they a healthier alternative to Dobies? I don't know. I haven't really seen too many work. I'm sure there are some good ones, but again, it's like an off breed, right? What do I consider biblical with an e-collar? When I say biblical, I mean it's it's it adjusts the entire mood and temperament of the dog. It changes the way they view the situation in that moment and maybe even forever. That's what I mean by biblical. When I punish a dog over something and I've decided, hey, like this is a behavior I need to punish him over, like reactive behavior or something like this, I make it biblical. I make it biblical, and I blitz the dog, and it's a life changing event for the dog as much as I can make it. Because the more I can do that, the less I have to correct the dog down the road, and the more he understands what's desirable versus what's undesirable. Okay, let's see. Can you send me a German Shepherd puppy to Morocco? No. I'll tell you what, you send me a Moroccan horse, and I'll send you a German Shepherd puppy. We'll trade. I live in a remote area. Crime is bad for burglary. Should I just keep my pack antisocial? I wouldn't. I mean, if you're remote and you don't care if they're friendly, I mean, sure. Could you recommend any online resources for learning scent detection? Yeah, check out Cameron Ford. I think he has an online course. Check him out. Cameron Ford is the guy who really knows his stuff when it comes to scent detection. Just going through the questions here, guys. Have I tried Martin System e-collars? I have. I never really loved them, to be honest with you. I'm on e-collar technologies. They're a lot cheaper, and it does everything I need an e-collar to do. Would I ever breed Dutch Shepherds? No, I would not. I would not breed Dutch Shepherds. They are not for me. They're not for most people, to be honest with you. When does puppy biting stop? Most puppies grow out of it, usually 6-ish months. Some don't, and you have to stop it, right? Any chance you could discuss what is genetic in IGP as opposed to training? Well, a lot of things are genetic, right? Genetic is the current that underlies everything. So, like a dog who shows excellent grips, this is 9 times out of 10 genetic for sure. There's a lot of really good training now with the e-collar for grips, um, but the vast majority of really good grips is genetic. The vast majority of really like fast dogs, like high speed, is genetic. The really strong dominant barking, like if you can tell the difference between that and trained behavior, is genetic. When I see a dog who's super active in obedience, it tells me, like, of course, the training was excellent, um, but it tells me also something about the dog, right? Like, if he's active and he stays active the whole entire time, and he's super powerful. Like there's obedience that is active and the dog is happy, but there's no power. And there's obedience where the dog shakes the earth with everything that he does. That's genetic, right? But it takes a bit of an eye, I think, to see that. 111 watching, only 31 likes. I think people are still mad at me for blitzing my last live stream. It's okay, guys. Like the video. I think that's the thing all the creators say now. Do I know any good Dutch trainers? You mean like in Holland? There are many good trainers in Holland. I don't personally know anybody there. Why do I prefer e-collar technologies over Dogtra? Better customer service. Their tech is less bulky, and I kind of like the round remote, to be honest with you. It fits in the palm of my hand. I like it. I saw a lady shocking a dog on the e-collar at super high stim for not sitting on the third command. I don't think she knew what she was doing. Well, it's certainly possible. Why are you not recommending 4 millimeter prong collars? I don't like them. I find they're generally useless. They're too blunt and big. Uh, like most people that are using that, they've got like a big mastiff, and the reason why it doesn't work for the mastiffs because the mastiff's already super strong. Like there's my wife in the background seeing why I'm not in the house. Buy work on 4-month-old puppy. When she bites full mouth, I reward by giving the rag. But then she chomps on the rag. Well, yes. Is this okay? Yeah. Just don't do too much of it. Have I heard of Primal Canine in California? I've interacted a little bit with him on Instagram. We did Mike's little. I think he actually beat me at Mike's little trainer contest that he had on Grassroots Canine on his Instagram. You know, like a bunch of us went in and we kind of like did different like behaviors and stuff. And in the end, he ended up. It was me and him in the finals, and he ended up winning. And he had, I guess, more people voted for his video over mine. It is what it is. Fair play to him. But he seems like a good dude, and he's doing big things down there. Uh, I haven't really, like, I don't really know him, so I can't speak obviously to like in depth stuff. But he seems like a cool guy. Was Diva Vasco litter mating a success? Yeah, it was a success. Um, those puppies are due soon. I have to look on the calendar, but they're due soon. Got a lot of people on the list for that litter. I will be getting a female from you with a 4 week with 4 weeks training. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were somebody else. We can train them in German. I can train them in any language. It doesn't really matter, right? It's whatever you want. I mean, I tend to do my protection dogs in German because a lot of people want that, right? What does it take to get a puppy from me? Not much. I mean, some of your money. I just gotta like I'm not one of these guys that makes you like do like this big long interview and all this kind of nonsense, right? Like I'm not that guy. Like I charge enough for my puppies that I think that vast majority of people that buy them are responsible enough, as individuals, and they've paid enough that they're going to look after the dog. And if they don't, I'll always take it back happily. Um, that's it, right? Like it's not complicated. If you want to get a puppy from me, email me. You can get on my waiting list, and I think the next up to be bred is Tiny. I think the Diva litter is already all booked. I mean, I take only a certain amount of bookings before a dog has had the puppies because I don't know how many puppies the dog's gonna have. Diva is fat, so she looks like she's gonna maybe have like 8, 9 puppies. I hope. But I don't take too many reservations before the puppies are on the ground because I like to keep always some for myself, so on and so forth. Um, how do you socialize your puppy to small children? Take them around small kids, make it a positive experience. Don't let any small kids do, not so nice things to them. If the dog acts uncomfortable, don't, push them too hard. You know, been using the trading videos and been working great so far. Thanks for making them. Appreciate that. Will I be breeding gauge? Probably not. Does your wife or other people also walk your personal dogs? Well, I mean, look, we live out in the country, so she'll let them out, but she doesn't like really walk them. Thoughts on IGP bite work versus dog biting on skin in terms of training differences? What? There's no one training a dog. There's no one training dogs to bite on skin. Like that's like I think you mean like in terms of actual like real training. Here's the thing with IGP training or any sport, okay? Sport is a sport. The dog's learning bite work within that specific context. Now, it's not about IGP. There's not one way to train IGP protection. There's 1,000 ways to train IGP protection. There's 1,000 ways, I'm sure, to train PSA protection, ring protection, anything else. Whether a dog or not, whether a dog will engage for real are down to a few things. Number one is the dog. There are some dogs that are as real as a heart attack and they've never done an ounce of any kind of realistic bite work. Okay? They've only ever done sleep work, but those dogs will bite you for real. And it's not because, like, what you have to understand with protection training is it's not about the equipment. I can see a dog biting a sleeve, I can see a dog biting a suit, and I can see a dog biting a hidden sleeve. And none of those pieces of equipment determine whether or not a dog is going to be real in the protection work. What it comes down to is the dog itself. How is the dog biting? How is the dog barking? When you're experienced, you can see these things and you can be able to tell, like, hey, this dog is for real versus this dog is probably not. Then, of course, there is an element of training where you show the dog as close to a real scenario as you possibly can, and you create a situation where the dog does believe he's biting for real. But I'm a big believer in the emotion of the dog and protection is important. right? The emotion of the dog in the protection is so important. And if you're able to manufacture the correct emotion, I don't care whether he's biting a stick, a sleeve, whatever, a suit, he's going to be that kind of dog. And of course, a lot of it's also the dog. What's the most pet things your sport dogs do? They do all pet things. My sport dogs are all functionally obedience trained. You know, I take them on regular walks, I'll hike them, whatever. There's nothing, that they don't do that a pet doesn't do. Can you suggest any Malinois working line German Shepherd breeders from East Europe? No, not really. I mean, I already kind of talked about it a little bit, but not beyond that. Um, okay, guys. I think I rolled through how do I potty train my puppy? Take my online course. I have a whole thing on potty training puppy. It's not something that I can say in a live. Like it's not. It's a whole process, right? Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry that the first live kind of crapped out on us. Um, but I'll definitely tune in again and do this. It's always nice to it's always nice to hang out and just talk dogs, and it's always nice to kind of touch base with all you guys. I hope you all have a great weekend, and see you again soon. Check out our online content, our online free content on YouTube, and also check out our online courses, shieldk9.ca. And have a great night, everybody.